If I can introduce as quickly as possible Graham Smith. Is Graham around? Yes, I saw Graham earlier. Graham's the Executive Advisor to the President and Managing Director of Toyota Motor Europe. Graham. Robert Evans, please. Robert's CEO of CENEX.
I'm not because I wasn't.
Don't worry, just shout.
Okay.
We can use one of the microphones with you, Graham. Robert, CEO of CENEX, Centre of Excellence for Low Carbon and Fuel Cell Technologies. Dr. John Richmond. John. Head of Advanced Engineering, Tata Motors, European Technical Centre. Klaus Cierocki. Klaus spoke earlier. He's over there. Vice President of Engine Components at Schaeffler. And Paul Everitt, Chief Executive of the SMMT. Paul, if I can start with you, you're... I was included there, didn't I? Yeah, absolutely. In your role, you're also a member of the Automotive Council that we heard a lot about earlier. From your vantage point of being in charge of the SMMT, how confident are you that the industry is rising to the low-carbon challenge?
No, I'm very confident. I mean, if we go back even 5, 10 years, I think the general reputation of our industry was one that kind of reluctantly came to some of the regulatory challenges that were posed by society, and particularly, I guess, in our case, regulators in Europe. And I think one of the key things that Richard did, and the guys who worked on the very first piece of work, which was the new Automotive Innovation and Growth team, was the way in which they identified the transition to low carbon as an industrial opportunity. And I think industry has really embraced that. And we saw some of the stuff earlier on where regulatory requirements in all of our key markets are all heading in the same direction. So I think that the way in which industry now sees it is very much as an industrial opportunity, and the alignment, if you like, of something that is a good thing with something that hopefully that can generate real economic growth and prosperity in the UK. It means that there's a huge weight behind it. It's not, it's not something that people are being forced to do. It's something that people want to do and are actively seeing as a way in sustaining their businesses and growing their businesses. Because, to Julia's point, there is a growing market for automotive products. Life is tough in Europe, but in many other of the markets around the world, growth is at a fast pace and will be at a fast pace over the course of the next 20 to 30 years. So that's a fantastic opportunity if you can get in the right place at the right time. And hopefully that's what we're trying to create here in the UK.
If I can move to maybe the other end, Graham, you're a leader of a company which is huge in scale and also has been at the forefront of hybridization of low carbon or lower carbon vehicles. I mean, what's your perspective on what you've heard today and the future as Toyota sees it?
Well, the first thing to say is that the direction is clear. The commentary that we've heard today has been very, very consistent. I would like to particularly acknowledge Julia's comment about let's not focus on one single technology. I think that's important from an OEM point of view. It's clearly important for the tier ones. There's a range of technologies, a range of capabilities. Happily, a lot of those capabilities are here in the UK and being moved forward in the UK. So we don't see a silver bullet, and for that reason, we and others are working clearly in terms of taking our hybrid vehicle range further in every region in the world, and by 2020 or the early 2020s, we expect to have a hybrid, at least one, if not more, in every single one of our model ranges. And so we see the mix moving to 20% in the near term. It's moving in that direction strongly already in the UK. We're also active with plug-in vehicles and fuel cell vehicles, and both of those technologies now are either in market, and I think has also been acknowledged, are also very close to market in terms of fuel cell. Not just ourselves, but Honda, the Hyundai Group, and others are focused on 2015. And we've heard about the Automotive Council, but we've also had a comment as well about UK H2 mobility. I mean, the good thing is that here in the UK, it isn't just individual organisations taking these things forward. There are platforms and structures that bring all of us together. Paul has commented on the Automotive Council, but UK H2 mobility, and there are a number of people in this room that are engaged, active, committed, and financially investing already in moving that forward. And not just Toyota, but other OEMs, but also a range of other stakeholders. So it's an exciting situation. It's one where commercial opportunity is there for large numbers of different organisations, and happily, a lot of that opportunity is here in the UK.
Maybe I can introduce a question for you, Klaus. I mean, you run a company which has invested in the UK consistently over the last few years with a very decent level of investment year by year, with now several facilities. I mean, how do you see this country as a centre for automotive innovation? What's good about coming to the UK, working in the British environment?
When we met in the lunch break, I said, I mean, the UK has such a long tradition, passion about their ability to really focus on their work. That makes it very interesting for us. I mean, if I look at all our manufacturing facilities in the UK, it's such a high level of passion on their work compared, I mean, if we compare productivity in the UK compared to even German facilities, it is highly comparable. So it is really, just from a production footprint, it makes it very interesting. From an engineering standpoint, as I said, I mean, over the last couple of years, we have seen the culture here in the UK has changed. I mean, it's becoming a more attractive country to do research and development work again. After a couple of decades that was not very interesting for us. So I think really if it comes to the UK, you've done a great job over the last couple of years. The UK, as well as many other European countries, have to find the markets to become an interesting market on a global scale. Because, I mean, competing on the low-cost levels, just as China does, as India does, we're not good at. We as Europeans are not good in this. But if it comes to very specific markets, if it comes to renewable energies, if it comes to niche technologies, I think that's where the UK and the Europeans are very, very strong at.
Questions from the floor? Anyone would like to raise anything at this stage? I'll come back to you later. It's like a bidding process. So.
Just a question to follow up on one of the questions that Digby Jones asked about, it said about journalists and journalism not reflecting excellence of engineering and manufacturing in this country. Now we see the automotive and engineering journalists getting more interested in this sort of technology we've been talking about all day. What do you all think that you can do to help the wider journalistic community understand more about how good the UK is in these sorts of technologies?
Paul?
We're doing our best, that's all I can say. I mean, to be fair, I probably disagreed with Digby actually, because maybe it's I'm too close to it, therefore don't see very much. But my sense is that there has been a very significant mood swing. There was a point in time when we would struggle to get anyone to talk about or write about what was going on in our sector. I think that it's very rare that I see a piece that talks about industry and what's happening in the UK that doesn't say something about automotive, even if it's only that it's performing against the trend around the rest of the economy. So I think we have made a significant shift, and I think there is a genuine interest. I think the challenge that we face is, as with all journalism, there has to be a story behind what you're telling them. They're not just going to be, particularly when you talked about the sort of national media, broadcast media, and indeed kind of broadsheets, there needs to be a story behind a piece of technology. Technology of itself is not, is interesting, but not a good piece of news. So it's you know, it has to be about the people that are involved, the places that are involved, the types of facilities that are involved, so that people can be engaged in it. And also one has to be persistent and patient. You know, they might not write the story first time round, but if you continue an engagement and a dialogue with journalists, you know, they will get there. You know, very often the journalists in it are actually very enthusiastic, but their editors don't see it as a story. So sometimes it takes a little bit of development time, a bit of work, and you know, running around the issue on a few occasions and giving them the opportunity to write the story. I think we think if we've told them something good has happened, then they'll either remember or they'll talk about it. Actually, we just need to keep reminding them good things have happened, and then they will find opportunities to use the data or use the information or showcase what we're doing.
John,
Just say, I think we've actually had some quite good experiences recently. The Geneva show this year, we rolled out the megapixel and showed that. Got an enormous amount of very positive publicity over a wide number of papers, and actually had a follow-up article which was you know, about 3 or 4 pages long in a specialist journal, which was extremely positive on the UK facilities where basically the concept was developed and implemented. So I don't have a problem at the moment.
Rob?
I'd just like to add to that point. I think is, you know, we know within how journalism works. We have very good journalists in the UK. They like a story, they like a balance within the story. They like on the one hand and they like on the other, and they like to get to the nub of the issue. And they also have typically had, in motor industry stories, framed by the audience's frame of reference around the industry. So if we were going back to the 70s, you'd have one frame of reference different from you know, not a good frame of reference, through to the 80s, to a lot of the overseas companies coming in and setting up in the UK, and a very positive story. The very positive story we have at the moment is around innovation and innovation around environmentally friendly vehicles, around low carbon vehicle technology. I think that has built up over time. There's a high level of awareness. And I think that when we speak to automotive journalists, there is a huge excitement. They're recognizing, because they can see what we within the industry have seen coming through the R&D pipeline, they can now see in real and material products, and they can see, you know, that. So we showcase, the best thing we can do is showcase that technology and talk about what's coming through the R&D pipeline, talk about the innovations that are coming forward, and then they get excited in the same way that we are excited in the industry. So, you know, what we do is we run the low carbon vehicle show. We invite lots of journalists, they see the technology, they talk to the engineers who are developing that technology, not to the person who's ultimately marketing it at the end of the day, but actually talking to the community that are bringing that technology forward to market and wrestling with the challenges of performance improvement, cost reduction, all the things that are necessary to realize this market opportunity. You know, it's a privilege to be working in this space at the moment with such a high amount of innovation and new technology, tackling a societal challenge of decarbonisation, societal challenge of energy diversity and energy efficiency. And that story comes across when people can see, and journalists can see, as we can see within the industry, as the customers beginning to see the products that are going to realise that future opportunity.
Do you think, Graham, the communication has been good enough? I mean, Stephen Green told me when he took his job, he did a straw poll of how many cars were made in the UK, and the maximum bidding he got was 100,000. When at that time, I think it was 1.1 million.
Yes, they were a little bit out. I think most of it has been said. All the vehicle manufacturers spend a great deal of time and effort and take members of the media here and there for what we call dynamic press launches. These are the first opportunities that journalists have to drive new products. And that's all part and parcel of it, and the road tests get printed and the comparative tests and all of that kind of thing. But what I think has happened in the last 10 years is there's been far more willingness to do what Robert's been describing, to take journalists into R&D centres, to give them the opportunity to understand the development track that's being followed, and to get journalists behind the wheels of cars yet to be introduced. So if you take the RAC Future Car Challenge as an example, I mean, low carbon vehicle is clearly another one. There were range extended hybrids, plug-in hybrids, fuel cell vehicles, etc. And there were journalists driving those cars, you know, from London, no, Brighton to London, get it the right way around. And we with our vehicles, introduced a competitive element, and we got journalists competing against each other. And we got some tremendous coverage from that, because the journalists were engaged, involved, and they had sitting next to them, already referenced, they had sitting next to them somebody who understood the technology. Not a sales and marketing person or a PR guy, they had an engineer. And that's where you get the value, and I think where the stories will start to well, not are already starting to flow.
Any questions or points? Two here.
George Farquhar, Head of Automotive Communications at FTI Consulting. I too would back up Paul and go slightly against what Digby Jones was saying. I'm fortunate enough to represent both Tata Motors and McLaren Automotive. And there is an enormous amount of goodwill that's starting to come through in the media, not specifically for the automotive industry, but manufacturing, you know, in general. The good news happens to be coming out of the automotive industry at the moment with what Jaguar Land Rover are doing, and indeed what McLaren and other, Nissan in Sunderland. There are some fantastic stories. The one area where I'd urge slight caution, and you mentioned the Future Car Challenge, which is, you know, a fantastic way of showcasing new technologies. That is Brighton to London, which is within the range. There have been one or two manufacturers who've tried to possibly run before they can walk by doing London to Edinburgh. The technology and the infrastructure is simply not there at the moment. And the articles that have come out of that have been pretty negative. And you know, that is damaging for the public perception of EVs and other technologies. So I think we just need to keep it within the realms of possibility, but overall positive.
Very good. There was please, number one.
I was just wondering more broadly if you could talk about what you all see as the sort of barriers or risks to the growth profile of the industry. And it seems that there's a lot of capital and there's a lot of competence, but there's been a sort of gap on skills to some extent and the supply of engineers. Why do you think that has been the case for a while, and how do you think that is likely to be resolved? So more broadly, what are the big risks? Do you think people will be reflecting back in 3 or 4 years and saying, we were surprised that these things came up as major factors that became a challenge for the industry, and then just more broadly on the skills and supply of engineers?
Okay, maybe we can run along and...
Okay. For us, the biggest threat is that we don't capitalise on the wave of investment that we're currently seeing. It's not very often that we're in a position where, I think they were using 5.5, I reckon it's 5.8 billion that's been invested or committed to the UK over the course of the last 2 years. There are, as the Secretary of State outlined, huge opportunities in the supply chain. I'm always keen if there was another vehicle manufacturer who wanted to come to the UK, I'd be very happy for them to do that. But I think the big growth opportunity is actually into the supply chain, which is very key. And the challenges that they have is ensuring that they have the capacity and capability to deliver what vehicle manufacturers want. And it is a combination of effectively investment in skills, in R&D, and in capital equipment. And to do that, we need finance. And I know there's been loads of stuff done, lots of schemes, but if you go and see, companies, it's still not reaching them. And that is the single biggest risk in my view, which is that good companies don't get the money and don't have the confidence to invest in the capability that they need to access the opportunities that are available to them now. And those will only be around for 12 or 18 months, because the vehicle manufacturer have to nail down their sourcing for product that's going to be on the lines in 3 or 4 years' time. And if we're not sourcing for those, we won't be sourcing for the next generation of them. So,
Klaus?
Yeah, I mean, financing, you've touched a very, very good point, because I think over the next couple of years, financing is going to be a huge hurdle for us, even for the ones that are very successful right now. We heard in one of the sessions before, there is no silver bullet. There will be a lot of different technologies coexisting. For both OEs as well as the tier ones, it means you're not following one direction, but you're following multiple directions. Otherwise, you're losing track on some of the technologies, and that means that requires a lot of money, a lot of investment into R&D, into capacities, and even the ones that are very successful right now have to be very careful in today's environment. And we all know the second half of this year is going to be another tough one. So bringing us further hurdles for creating new cash over the next couple of years. So I think with everything that has been said, there will be multiple technologies coexisting, but I mean, it really, there is high risk involved in this as well.
John, maybe a comment on skills?
Well, what I was going to say, I think, was that most of the conferences focused on supply chain and European and UK manufacture. My company specialises in supporting Indian development, and the thought does occur to me that the needs of Indian manufacturers and vehicles are different to those of European. And I think our supply chain in the UK ought to be actively looking at what the needs of those markets are, because that gives them a large export market. And certainly what we're finding is that we need to be developing solutions that are specific for that market, not just copying the solutions that we have in Europe and America and Japan. So perhaps that's a different thought.
I think Digby's obviously left, but I think Triumph... Oh, you're there. You're going to give your Triumph advertisement for motorbikes in India. Are you allowed to speak about that, or is it secret?
I've been listening to all of this downstairs on the TV.
Okay.
So I raced up on the basis that I heard a bit about whether I was right or wrong, and I was talking about supporting the media. And I thought, I can't let them get away with that.
I thought you'd left it.
Oh,
We're
no
supposed
way.
to have finished 2 minutes ago.
No,
Digby,
this is 2 minutes on that and 1 minute on Triumph. My question was loaded. Is Stephen Green here? No, my question was loaded basically towards the politicians. I think the journalist side of life in print and a bit in BBC has come far more favourably towards manufacturing in the last year or so. I think one of the reasons is because they thoroughly enjoy smacking the bankers. So there's, but the little bit of worry on visual media and sound media is if they've got 2 minutes to fill and they've got a choice between a bad news story and a good news story, they'll still go with the bad news story, which concerns me. What does worry me is that wealth creation generally has become open season for smacking it in the political class. That's not just about Vince hating bankers or anything else. Ed Miliband's doing it, Clegg's doing it, they're all doing it. And it worries me that they're appealing to the populace of this is wealth creation, it is bad. And it makes them feel good, they might get a few more votes. The problem they've got, of course, is without the wealth that business creates, you don't have any public sector, you don't have any tax generated and all the rest. That was the thrust of the question, but I thought the comments today, just now, that I was watching on the TV downstairs, I thought were right. Actually, I do think there's a little bit of a thrust towards a more favourable audience in the print media. On Triumph, I chair Triumph Motorcycles. We employ about just under 2,000 people in Britain. We employ about the same number in Thailand. We make 50,000 bikes in Leicestershire, and we sell them to 31 countries. Turn over about 350 million quid a year, and we make money. We've decided to, and we make bikes over 500 cc, so we're discretionary spend basically. We don't go to work on a bike job. We make a discretionary spend choice, and we've decided to build a plant in India. We're going to depower a bike to 250 cc, sell it only in the Indian market. Remember the figure, 50,000 to 31 countries. All our market research shows that in our first year of sale in India, made in India, sold in India, but a Union Jack British brand Triumph, we will sell 250,000 bikes. We will sell in one country in the first year 5 times what we make for the entire world every year. Now, if we can then do that again in Brazil, we're opening in Brazil, we open the factory in Brazil next month actually, and then we plan to do it probably in Indonesia after that. That's not going to hurt Leicestershire at all. That's nowhere near hurting what we do in Britain. And all the design and all the IP will stay in Britain. But the concept of taking the Union Jack and the brand at what I would call the discretionary spend end of consumer choice and value-added manufacturing into an emerging, getting richer market, which is where I hope advanced engineering is. It's trying to get into a getting richer market. I like to think the company I chair is a good example of that.
Very good. Final comments from you, Robert?
I'd just like to answer the previous question around risk and reward to say that we know there's a risk because we're developing very innovative technologies and we need to scale those up into mass production. We know there's also risk in the marketplace because we are quite pioneering in what we're doing in e-mobility and intend to pioneer in H2 mobility as well. We're pioneering low carbon technologies, and picking up on George's point, you know, there are some issues with that. When you're first to the market things are not always standardized, we're having to learn about the types of infrastructure we're going to need to support plug-in vehicles. So we're at the leading edge, but we're doing that leading the business model development at the same time as the technology development. And that means we're quite good in the UK companies to work with for international companies, because international companies are getting that dual perspective. They're getting to see how we are wrestling with these issues. And because the UK, we have an open dialogue about these issues. We talk about them, we try to thrash out, we try to get solutions. So UK companies are good companies to do business with because we are pushing at this leading edge of these risk issues.
I just wanted to round out by taking a slightly different perspective. We've heard a tremendous amount today about the supply side of the industry. We've heard about the investment, the innovation, the contribution of a very capable supply chain. We've heard about the platforms and the structures, UK Automotive Council, H2 Mobility, etc. I think if you like, the supply side, the introduction of these technologies into the marketplace, is in a very positive place. The demand side of this equation, in other words, the marketplace for these technologies, is altogether less well developed. And there is a role for, of course, all of us and our companies, but also in terms of helping to grow this small market, which is what it is for low carbon technologies. There's a role for government, for fiscal authorities, in terms of consistency of approach, clear signals to the market, the education, as far as possible, of consumers, because there will be a problem if that market does not develop as rapidly as we're developing the products, and that's in a difficult economic situation, which has already been referenced. So I just think that we all need to keep a very close eye on the market, its development, and the market for electric vehicles and vehicles attracting the plug-in grant, the grant that's available in the UK for electric vehicles, is developing, but not quite as quickly as some might have expected. Our hybrid experience led us to believe that it would follow the path that it's following. But we need to be patient, and we need to be very remorseless on the marketing side as much as on the innovation and the manufacturing side.
Very good. On that note, can I thank you all for your attention over the last couple of hours. I do hope you found it interesting. If you can join me in saying thank you to the panel.